Hi everyone, and welcome to topic 4B part 3, where we continue talking about taking the lead. Just coming back to that continuum of change that we've already talked about, the 1980s, there was a lot of change in our external environment. If we think about our macro environment, legal changes, governmental changes, we floated the dollar, big changes in employment legislation, more or less the end of union control, the end of awards. We had a huge growth as well in the service sector and a downturn in manufacturing. Quite a change in employment relationships with the idea of collective bargaining on individual work sites. And also this aspect of the fact that New Zealand is a country of small to medium-sized enterprises. I think on a global scale we've got something like 99% small to medium-sized businesses. So we're not big in the employer stakes either. In the 1990s we had direct government intervention in sport, and we had the creation of Spark in 2003. So that's a decade old, though of course that's segued into Sport New Zealand as well. That's also led a lot of changes. Sport, instead of being funded more or less as philanthropy by the country, has now become business, and we've got that professionalisation starting in the 90s as well. Huge amount of directed change in non-profit sport organisations, where sports organisations had to become business-like. We've created new roles, so instead of the club captain, more or less, you've got the chief executive. That professionalisation of sport, as I've mentioned, so it's not just the players who've become professionals, it's the people who manage and organise sport as well. There's also been a lot of impact on the people within the sports community. There have been a lot more opportunities, but also a lot more uncertainty, particularly if you're a volunteer, about what's actually required now. Someone with a passion can't get in and start. And there's the plight of the disappearing volunteer, where people are in general quite stretched and don't really have the energy left at the end of the week to volunteer as much as they used to. Then just thinking about where are we now and where are we likely to head, just thinking about how we communicate with people has changed. Think about PR and how quickly word can spread, social media, the impact of how we actually get the word out, how we influence people. All the channels for that are changing, and changing quite quickly. From a leadership perspective, this takes more resources, and there are more considerations that have to be managed in the whole process. So there's also some big issues. So this is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The self-actualisation needs, self-esteem, social, and then safety needs and psychological needs. So the reason I've put this on there is the big issues for the 2010s onwards. Firstly is resourcing. So that's actually getting the stuff at the bottom of the pyramid, making sure you've got enough cash, making sure you've got enough sponsors, all those kind of things. The second one is risk reduction. That's also a safety issue. Retaining institutional knowledge, strategy, structure and flexibility. So people are actually down in that safety and psychological needs area instead of actually being able to build. That is a problem in sport for the future, just thinking about how you cope with that. Then way down the list of things for people to consider. Culture, staffing and diversity. Now that's quite sad, because they're the things that build on organisational value. Particularly staffing, where you're managing volunteers and ensuring you've got a culture that's open enough to criticism to be adaptive, and having enough diversity around the table to ensure that the organisation stays current with what's happening around it.